A pregnant, disabled mom just got jumped by a group of middle school kids. What happened next will shock you, and it's happening in neighborhoods everywhere. When did it become cool to hurt strangers? And I'm not talking about teenagers or young adults, these are elementary-aged children. It's alarming, disturbing even, to see such aggression from kids barely in their teens. What's happening with this younger generation? Where is the kindness, the empathy? My concern deepened after seeing a video of a group of children viciously attacking a woman and her child. Picture this: you're heading to your child's school to pick them up. A routine so familiar it feels safe, almost mundane. You expect the walk to be ordinary, uneventful. But today, something is different. You notice a group of around 20 kids trailing you, shouting insults, making their presence impossible to ignore. These aren't tiny children, most are around 12 to 14 years old, and some are physically as big as you. Instinctively, you try to keep moving, putting distance between yourself and them, but they close in, encircling you and your child. And then it happens, they strike. Not just a shove or a push, but a full-blown attack. Your child is hurt too. The scene is chaotic and terrifying, like something straight out of a horror story. But this isn't fiction. What makes it even more shocking is who the victim is: a woman, likely living with a disability and battling sickle cell disease, making her vulnerable in every sense. This isn't an isolated incident or a story exaggerated for shock value. It's real, and it's a stark reflection of a troubling trend among kids who should still be learning compassion, not cruelty.
Chicago can't be a real place. A group of bullies jumped the pregnant mom of the little boy that they was bullying at school. They bombed the mom up. They talking about her crusty ankles. They calling her or whatever, because maybe she had a disability. Her back was a little bit going to the left, and she was also pregnant. A pregnant, disabled mom was jumped by a group of bad, disrespectful teens, bro. They do that at y'all out here jumping disabled, pregnant women and that even my generation, we had enough respect. You know, we was disrespectful and we wasn't about to beat nobody mom. You know how much gotta have to beat up mom up, and she pregnant. That's a mother. Don't give up.
I kept hearing similar sentiments from women in the Black community, not just men. Many said, if it were my child, things would have gone differently. One voice stood out. A woman said, "Oh, if I had been that lady who got jumped at Brace School yesterday, there would have been a fight in my face." And honestly, she had a point. Too many kids are allowed to run wild, unchecked. When parents let this slide, the lessons come to Latafin in the form of public chaos. And then everyone wonders why their children are out of control. This incident happened at Orville T. Bright School on the south side of Chicago, and it sparked outrage. The next day, the community rallied in support of the woman. They demanded accountability not just for the kids, but for their parents, and even called for expulsion and prosecution. This wasn't an ordinary scuffle. The woman, who lives with sickle cell anemia, was attacked while protecting her two children. She was shoved against a gate, knocked down, and beaten, all while shielding her child. The savagery of it left many stunned. Some people raised another concern. What if the woman had been carrying a weapon or was pregnant? Could she have legally defended herself? In situations like that, the public often condemns the adult for using excessive force, even when the children initiated the violence. It's a moral gray area that's hard to navigate, and yet, seeing the brutality of the attack, many would argue she had every right to protect herself and her child. This is not just a Chicago issue. Similar events are happening elsewhere. In Philadelphia, a 12-year-old named Peyton Outlaw was assaulted by a school staff member after he allegedly swung at a teacher. His mother insists that while her son was wrong, he did not deserve to be hit by an adult in a place that should feel safe. The result: a swollen lip, a lost tooth, and multiple stitches. These incidents highlight a troubling reality. Children of this age can be physically strong enough to seriously injure adults. Some middle schoolers are capable of overpowering grown people, which complicates questions of discipline, accountability, and self-defense. The community's frustration often boils down to one simple question: where are the parents? Many of these children grow up without consistent supervision or male role models. Single mothers juggle work and life. Grandmothers may be too old to provide structure, and kids end up raising themselves without guidance, without boundaries, and with little access to educational support or extracurricular programs. It's no surprise that some turn to violence or mimic behaviors they see at home or online. Low literacy and math scores, absent fathers, lack of safe spaces, and minimal investment in inner-city communities all compound the problem. The energy and curiosity of youth, if not channeled positively, can manifest in aggression and destructive behavior. When kids emulate what they see at home or online, it's a reflection of the environment around them. And until the root issue is parental oversight, community investment, and opportunity are addressed, these cycles of violence and chaos are likely to continue. Look, nobody is perfect, neither women nor men, but I remember being a kid. Growing up in Del Paso Heights and later on the south side of Compton, I saw firsthand how children mirror what they see at home. If a parent solved problems by cursing, fighting, or acting recklessly, that's what the kids would emulate. If gangs were in the picture, the kids were often right there too. People often forget, adults with poor habits, criminal records, or toxic behaviors still have children. So when those children misbehave, it's not coming out of nowhere. The roots are in the home environment. Many inner-city communities in Black America face a similar pattern. Low skills, little discipline, and few opportunities. Without structure, guidance, or hope, frustration festers. Low property values, neglected neighborhoods, and limited investment make it worse. Talented people often leave these areas, seeking safety and opportunity elsewhere. It's the same in Chicago, or in towns like Dalton, Illinois. People move away because they can't afford to live under constant fear or dysfunction.
Let somebody play with my mother, son. Let somebody touch my mother, son. Y'all could try to drag me because they jumped her, so she couldn't very too much do anything. But touch my mother, kid, and that's where y'all all kids at that will be on some shirts, and I don't care. I'm not treading like.
Walking down the street, even for something as ordinary as picking up your child from school, has increasingly become a source of fear for many parents. No longer is it simply a routine errand or a peaceful stroll through the neighborhood. It is now fraught with anxiety, with adults reporting that they feel threatened by groups of 12 to 14-year-olds. These are not small children, they are teenagers who, in many cases, possess the strength, coordination, and aggression to physically harm an adult. The alarming reality is that incidents of youth intimidation are not isolated. They are being reported across the country in urban centers such as Los Angeles, Oakland, Washington, D.C., and Chicago, among many others. Parents have shared experiences of being surrounded by clusters of adolescents who shout, jeer, and sometimes even advance aggressively toward them or their children. In a society that idealizes childhood innocence, these reports are shocking precisely because they violate the expectation that youth are harmless. The danger posed by these adolescents is often amplified by the lack of supervision and guidance in their daily lives. Many teenagers involved in violent acts come from environments where structure is weak, discipline is inconsistent, and accountability is minimal. Without role models who actively teach conflict resolution, respect, and empathy, children often resort to replicating behaviors they have observed elsewhere. These behaviors can come from older siblings, peers, media influence, or even parental modeling. In other words, the aggression seen on the streets is rarely spontaneous. It is learned, normalized, and reinforced over time. Contrast this with other parts of the world, where youth culture manifests very differently. Take, for instance, Uganda, where despite economic challenges and social hardships, teenagers behave in ways that prioritize respect and civility in public spaces. Walking down a street in Kampala rarely involves feeling threatened by adolescents. Young people greet adults, demonstrate deference, and even, when misbehavior occurs, maintain a level of self-restraint that prevents random acts of violence. While Uganda has its own social challenges, the distinction is clear: a cultural environment that emphasizes community respect, accountability, and structured expectations produces youth who are less likely to harm others in public. This comparison highlights that the issues faced in American cities are not simply teenage rebellion or an inevitable aspect of growing up. They are shaped by complex social, cultural, and systemic factors that influence behavior from a young age. So, what has gone wrong? Why does walking down the street in some American cities feel like navigating a minefield of potential threats? At the heart of it lies a profound shift within certain communities in the United States, particularly Black urban communities. Historically, these neighborhoods were founded on principles of mutual support, resilience, and collective uplift. Families relied on extended kinship networks, neighbors supported one another, and community elders played a critical role in guiding youth. Even in the face of systemic oppression, these communities fostered a sense of pride, responsibility, and interconnectedness that created social cohesion. Over time, however, that foundational structure has eroded. Economic disenfranchisement, residential segregation, mass incarceration, and underinvestment in public institutions have contributed to an environment in which the social fabric is fraying. When neighborhoods lose value in the eyes of their residents, when young people no longer see a path to personal or communal advancement, behaviors rooted in frustration and neglect begin to surface. Children internalize the lack of structure around them and replicate what they observe, often unconsciously mimicking the behaviors of adults or peers who themselves may be struggling to survive in these difficult conditions. Adding to this is the broader cultural influence that has shaped perceptions of status, identity, and masculinity within some segments of Black American society. For decades, mainstream culture has glorified certain antisocial behaviors. Gang involvement, criminality, and defiance against authority have often been presented as badges of honor in media, music, and social discourse. Phrases like "free my N-word" or the celebration of notorious figures in gang culture sent the message that rebellion, lawlessness, and public notoriety are pathways to respect. While these representations may have been entertaining or empowering in some contexts, they also normalize behaviors that, when unmoderated in real life, can become violent, disruptive, and dangerous. Now, we see the consequences. Everyday citizens, including parents and children, are confronted by behaviors that were once romanticized on screen or in songs. The glorification of lawlessness has come full circle, manifesting not on a stage but in the streets and schools where innocent people are harmed. It is here that accountability becomes essential. It is convenient to blame systemic inequality, political leaders, or historical oppression for the problems we see today. There is no denying that these factors exist. Structural racism, poverty, and unequal access to education and opportunity are all significant contributors to the challenges faced by urban communities, yet focusing solely on external forces obscures the role of internal community accountability. Generations of parents, caregivers, and community members have allowed negligence, lack of discipline, and poor role modeling to persist. In homes where conflict resolution is aggressive, where emotional regulation is weak, and where civic responsibility is deep, children naturally replicate those patterns. Consider this: the civil rights generation, despite facing monumental systemic barriers, rarely allowed youth behaviors to escalate to the point where parents themselves were at physical risk. Even the gangs of the 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s operated under codes and rules. And certain behaviors, like attacking parents or random adults on the street, were taboo. Today, however, mothers and fathers report being physically assaulted by middle school-aged children in ways that would have been unimaginable to previous generations. This represents a breakdown not only of parental authority but of communal norms that once guided youth behavior. Moreover, the psychological implications for both adults and children in this environment are profound. For parents, the streets no longer feel safe. Routine activities like walking to school or going to the grocery store are overshadowed by anxiety. Adults report hypervigilance, constantly scanning their surroundings for potential threats. For children, exposure to normalized aggression can have long-term consequences on their emotional development, their ability to form healthy relationships, and their understanding of social boundaries. The cycle perpetuates itself. Children raised in environments where aggression is commonplace often struggle to regulate their impulses, and without intervention, they continue these patterns into adolescence and adulthood. The stakes are even higher when considering systemic neglect of inner-city neighborhoods. Schools in these areas frequently lack adequate resources, experienced educators, or extracurricular programs that could provide alternative outlets for energy and creativity. Communities with low investment often see higher crime rates, lower property values, and limited opportunities for youth engagement. The combination of environmental neglect, parental absence or distraction, and cultural normalization of aggression creates a perfect storm in which dangerous behavior thrives. It's crucial to recognize that this crisis is not a reflection of individual character alone, it is a societal mirror. It reflects historical neglect, persistent inequality, and the erosion of community structures that once provided safety and guidance. Yet, within that reflection lies a call to action. Change is possible if communities recommit to fostering accountability, structure, and positive modeling. This involves parents reclaiming authority and responsibility, mentors stepping into roles to guide youth, and institutions investing in safe spaces, education, and recreational opportunities. The challenge, of course, is not merely logistically, is cultural. Rebuilding a sense of communal value, pride, and mutual responsibility requires a shift in mindset. Parents and community leaders must actively teach respect, emotional intelligence, and conflict resolution. At the same time, society at large must address systemic inequities that make it difficult for families to provide consistent oversight, guidance, and opportunities for their children. It is both an internal and external project, requiring coordinated effort and long-term commitment. At its core, the current crisis is a reflection of neglect, both societal and self-inflicted. Communities that once thrived on mutual support and collective uplift are now grappling with the consequences of decades of disinvestment, neglect, and cultural misdirection. The random violence, the intimidation on streets, and the attacks on innocent adults are symptoms of a larger structural and cultural problem. To confront it, we must acknowledge the interconnectedness of these factors. The behavior of youth cannot be divorced from the influences of home, culture, and environment.
Packing something, man. She pregnant. She not about to play with you, little mother. Try to harm her mother. She pull her shit out and pop, pop, pop. What the story have been? What would be the headlines? What? Would she have been wrong? Like, what is she supposed to do in a situation like that? Like, honestly, just let the little mutant ninja kick and punch and shit all up over her. She pregnant and
ultimately, taking accountability is the first step toward meaningful change. Pointing fingers at politicians, media, or other external entities may offer temporary relief from blame, but it does not solve the problem. Recognizing that these challenges are partly of our own making and that solutions require active, intentional, and sustained effort within communities is essential. Only by reclaiming the principles of mutual respect, accountability, and community investment can we hope to restore the safety, dignity, and promise that every neighborhood and every child deserves. Walking down the street should not feel like a calculated risk. Picking up a child from school should not inspire fear. Until we address the root causes: parental involvement, communal support, cultural guidance, and structural investment, the threat posed by unchecked adolescent aggression will persist. The work is daunting, the stakes are high, and the consequences are real, but acknowledging the problem and committing to solutions is not optional. It is necessary, and it is the responsibility of everyone who values the future of our communities, our youth, and our society as a whole.